Hey guys, it's John with Alternative Standard. If you ever wondered how to remove both your top and bottom tail plastics, then this is the right video for you. If you're curious as to how I got to this point, I'd refer you to how to remove your seat. Also, if you have a top case mount, check out this video. Now, when we're talking about the top tail plastics, you're going to have to first remove these two bolts located on the top portion. They're pretty straightforward, but it's the first step you have to take on. Next, you're going to have to remove 5 screws located underneath the top tail plastics. One thing important to note is I had to get a thin Phillips head screwdriver in order to access one of the screws. Right now we're looking at only 3 of the 5 screws, but the configuration is pretty much the same. There's 2 accessory holes located underneath, and you just have to insert your tool in order to reach those screws. Lastly, I found it really helpful to have a small Phillips head screwdriver, much like a stubby, or you could try to find a really long Phillips head screwdriver that might be able to reach. And that's it. Basically, once you have all the screws removed, you can go ahead and take off the top tail plastics. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing really holding it down. Just gotta wiggle it out. And there you go.
About removing the tail assembly, this is the portion that we're focused on. Unfortunately, we have this plastic piece right here that's kind of obstructing our ability to pull it out. Now, normally, if this was a standard bike, it wouldn't have this portion blocking my way. And I'm interested in also trying to get this repainted a different color to match the bike. But I'll start with removing this piece. And now this piece is actually made by DigiNow. What it does is that it supercharges my bike and it'll charge at a rate of basically from 0 to 100% in about an hour and a half. That's a huge improvement versus the standard bike, which basically takes about 10 hours to charge from like 0 to 100% generally. So I'll be looking at having this removed, then I'll be removing this piece, and then finally the tail plastics. So that's the whole picture. Let's get to it.
Now we're looking at the tail area, and I just want to say that we're going to have to remove the or disconnect the wiring harnesses. What I recommend is that we have some way to label them. So I have masking tape of blue and white, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. This last one is the brake light, so it's different from all the other ones. I don't need to label that. There we go. We have all the wires clear. Now on either side you have these bolts of the plastics. So you just need to go ahead and remove those. And we'll move further down. This piece is called the tail pod, which basically it holds your signal lights, such as the turn signals and brake lights. One thing I had difficulty was in recording the underside of the tail plastics. So you just have to take my word for it. There's 4 bolts that are holding the tail pod to the frame. It's important to note, if you did not disconnect your wires yet, do so before removing the tail pod. It's gonna be a huge pain. We then have these plastic pieces that hold this rubber shroud, I would say. I kind of consider it like a grommet because it provides a little bit of a seal, prevents the majority of the dust and grime getting in there, but it's not weatherproof by any means. But it's pretty simple, so let's go ahead and take these out. One thing to note is that there's a lip that it catches underneath, so when you do remove it, I'm going to lift up the plastic so you can get that out. So now I'm going to press down from the top portion downwardly so that we start clearing the frame. Once we're clear of the frame, we can then manipulate this so we can pull it to the sides. And that's what we want. We want some clearance up top, and I'll show you up top what we got. This is the perspective of the brake light. What you can see are the screw holes within the frame. The screws are on the opposite side of this. One thing to note is that you'll need to have some clearance for an Allen key in order to remove these two screws. They're fairly difficult in the tight space, so what I found useful to have a really long one. Once you remove the brake light screws, you're near the end. It's fairly straightforward. Hopefully you've already disconnected the signal wires. Same thing, we're pulling this apart and get everything separated. Note that we do have these lips that go around it, and I'll explain it better once I get everything out. There you go. This is what it should look like. I wanted to better explain basically how the tail piece as well as the plastics intertwine with each other. It's easy to think once you take out the screws underneath that you're good to go and you can go ahead and just pull out this plastic. Unfortunately, when you look at it, it actually interlocks with each other due to these 3 points, and they're for each side. So you would have to clear out what's underneath, then break it open by rotating it, as you can see here, and then it kind of lifts free. There are teeth that are arranged in this fashion, so best not to just pull it straight out but rotate it. That's my suggestion to you. I want to make this an opportunity to share. If you have any questions or suggestions regarding the video you just watched, leave it down in the comments below. I'm always trying to find ways to improve. If I don't happen to get to your question in time, the community is awesome. They'll be able to help you out. And that's it. This has been a video with John. Ride safe.